Hello and welcome back to Blackwatch Intel. My name is Crashy, and with me today is NeBo and Scrubby. We're going to be bringing you the first ever episode of the Blackwatch Intel podcast, or the OpinioNaded podcast. It's the branding that we've chosen for the podcast is going to be OpinioNaded podcast, but it's actually going to be featured here on the Blackwatch Intel channel. So, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
I'm chilling. I'm good. Scrubby, NeBo, y'all are both feeling good?
Oh yeah,
I'm
always.
feeling great, man.
Awesome.
Get to talk
So,
about some Overwatch.
oh yeah, talking about some Overwatch, talking about a few specific things, because there's definitely, at very least, two things on my list that I want to talk about. One, PogChamp XQC got announced for Dallas Fuel, and I'm really excited about that because I'm a Texan, and Envious, prior to their roster changes and them announcing their branding for Dallas Fuel, have been a super dominant team. They went, undefeated in the contender season, and they just crushed it. They picked up Seagull, and now they have XQC, so I'm just getting really hyped about that. And if you haven't watched XQC, watch him. He's super enthusiastic and ridiculous and really fun. So do y'all have anything to say about that? Shout out to Canada, yeah. I don't know. If you haven't seen the announcement video that they tweeted out for him, it was sick. It was such a small little announcement montage that they did, but it came out really good. So I thought it was awesome.
I think it's a good move. I just feel like right now Envious is almost going to run into that problem where they have too many star players and not enough people there to set up the star players.
Well, see, that's the other thing, though. I keep looking at their roster, and okay, so Seagull and XQC, I assume they're not going to be quote-unquote starters for the team, and the reason I think that is because they already weren't starters on the team, and the team that was built with Envious is a phenomenal team, so they don't really have a reason to make a change off the cusp. You know, like when they first go into their first match, they have no reason to change their roster. But at the same time, all they've done is denied that talent from other teams. And I don't know if it's because of their contracts, because of the salary that they're making, or if because they wanted to, those players wanted to go to the most dominant team, or that what looks to be the most dominant team in the Overwatch League right off the start. I don't really know. I remember Hastro said something on Twitter about how he's pretty certain that the Dallas Fuel roster is like the highest paid team in the entire league. So they probably have some pretty some pretty big plans, some pretty big contracts. So it's hard to say, but I don't know. I think their roster is stacked.
The only thing that I'm worried about is not worried about, just interested to see is I'm wondering if they're getting all these players to when the league starts to be more developed, have trading pieces.
Oh, absolutely.
Just kind of barter with.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Do you think they're going to do a feeder team too? And that's where they're going to put Seagull and him?
I don't know if they need to do anything like a feeder team, but the rosters are what, 9 to 10 players, something like that. I know you can have 9. I'm not sure if you can have 10, but if let's say hypothetically you can have 9 players. I need to do more research, but if you can have 9 players, you're like a roster and a half. So you have a really solid amount of reserves, and that's where the specialty kind of comes in, because Envious's biggest weak point was the lack of a strong projectile player. And, Taimu can play a little bit of everything. He plays a lot of Junkrat. I've never really seen him play Pharah, and I know he started playing Genji some, but he wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, Taimu's not known for his Genji, he's known for his hit scan accuracy. And you add someone like Seagull to the roster, and it's like, oh, hell, he's an amazing Pharah and amazing Genji. So when they want to run a composition that has something like that in it, if that's their starting strategy for the match, then they would sub him in for Mickey or someone else on the roster.
With the feeder team you're talking about, that's like, he just had a team back in, I think it was Call of Duty. It was Envy Red and Envy Blue.
Mm-hmm.
It had 2 teams going on, so maybe they can do something like that if that's even allowed. I don't even know.
But that's actually not a terrible idea, because there's going to be, there's different stages of competitive Overwatch, presumably because of the contenders and the open series. So Envious as a brand, Envious, if it's allowed by the developers and the leagues, could technically host a team and sponsor a team for the Contenders League, kind of like their, their undercard team, but that wouldn't really have anything to do with the remaining of their Overwatch League roster, because those players are already signed and playing for the Overwatch League. So I don't know, it's weird. It's weird that you're allowed to have so many extra players, but it's cool at the same time because it allows specialties to kind of form. But at the same time, I've always thought it was weird just because, like, if you have a game and it's starting already and you wanted to, like, swap to projectile because you needed it as a counter, well, you can't, like, swap the player and swap the hero at the exact same time. So it's like it has to be kind of like the starting strategy. Like, hey, is Farah strong in the meta? Oh, she is on this patch. All right, we're going to start running Seagull more or something like that. I don't know.
It just feels like they have so much talent locked up too. Like it's almost anti-competitive for the league that they have such a stacked roster because there's a few rosters in the Overwatch League that are just like, wait, you're in the Overwatch League?
Yeah, and it's not because the players are bad. Like, I'm never gonna say that. Like, the San Francisco Shock team and what was it, the Boston Uprising team that was just announced, they have phenomenal players, insane players. So we're talking about a team that has Sinatra on it, but I don't really see the team. You know what I mean? Like, I just haven't really. I don't really see them as a team yet, and that's going to be kind of weird. And I know they're going to develop, and I'm not worried about them and their ability to perform. But, like, I just look at the accolades and accomplishments of Dallas Fuel, and I look at the people they're adding. They added Custa, and they just stole so much talent. And I wonder, I really have to wonder how much they ended up grabbing Seagull for and how much they ended up grabbing XQC, because I was expecting XQC to get announced for Houston. I really was, because there's still a few teams a handful of teams that need to be announced, and I just assumed XQC was going to go to Houston. He's been toying and playing with the idea of being in the Overwatch League, but he had nothing to say for a long time, so I don't know.
Who's that kid that ended up getting picked up for like 150?
That's Sinatra. Yeah, he's on San Francisco
Okay.
Shock. Yeah, he's the 17-year-old tracer god, and he's insane. But at the same time, like I said, their roster is just weird. They have a ton of DPS players, and most of the DPS players that they picked up, they have like 4 or 5 DPS players, and like all of the DPS players they picked up are all hit scans too. So it's like, or they're known. Yeah, so there's really not. And I know they did some kind of an interview, like podcast like interview with the owner or one of the owners of their team, and he was talking about how, like, oh, these players are much more diverse than they're given credit for. And I have no doubt. I mean, when Seagull started streaming, he was just known as the Genji player, but like nobody even thinks of him in that way anymore. I mean, it gets brought up, but that's not his like main niche anymore. So I'm sure those players are good at other roles, of course, too.
Well, they're gonna run the gold strat, where they're just gonna run 4 DPS.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, man? Who knows exactly what they're gonna do? But I guess we've spent a pretty decent amount of time talking about this, and that was kind of actually random. That was not my intention bringing it up. I was just super hyped about the announcement. One thing that I definitely want to touch on, and I guess we can go on ahead and do that now, is the end of season 6. And I think, NeBo, was it your idea or Scrubby's idea to kind of like give our thoughts and kind of recap on season 6? What do you think? How did it go for you? What do you hope for the future, et cetera, et cetera?
I think that was Scrub.
All right, I'll start off then. I thought season 6 was actually really boring. I was bored 99% of it. I just felt like I'm a support main, and I didn't get to play anything except for Mercy because It's just she was so OP this season that you really didn't have a choice. Like there was nothing even in her league relatively that could be played as an effective healer. And I just feel like, especially with the changes to the SR game, so many insta locks and one tricks, it was just felt off. Did not feel like a fun season, in my opinion.
So goal wise, did you set a goal? Did you reach your goal? Did you fall short? Did you care at all?
I didn't really care.
You didn't really care?
Yeah, I hit diamond on Xbox and I was like, I'm just gonna take the gold points, and then on PC I just never really cared.
Yeah. So what about you, NeBo? What are you thinking?
The common theme that I've seen, like a lot of these people, they just come in here, like every season has progressively got worse to the point where it's just like, I'm just gonna play, get my competitive points, and dip. And that's it. Like they don't really strive to be better. I mean, there is people, don't get me wrong, that like they want to be the top 500, but where it's just like, whatever, the toxicity is so bad, I'm just gonna get my points, get my golden gun.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. The season was like really whack for me too. Like I went from 38-70. Like I don't get it. Like it was really bad.
Yeah.
That was last season, 38-70.
Yeah, so your career high. For me, and I'll probably end up elaborating quite a bit on this just because it's what I do every day is play this stupid game. But what I do is I care it a lot. I have a goal. My eventual goal is to at very least break 4K at some point. I mean, my goal, I don't even care if I ever get top 500, but I'd love to be able to say that I at least made it to the highest rank prior to the, the position lock top 500 that exists. And my problem is that in season 3 and season 4, I broke into Masters, and it wasn't, I don't remember it being hard. I remember my climb between season 2 to season 3 being fairly linear. I started putting a lot of time on very specific heroes, and I started seeing results, and that's how I like things to feel. I mean, as someone that's like focusing on my health and stuff, that's what it's like. When I make positive decisions, I make choices to improve something, it'll very linearly, I see those results. And with Overwatch, man, that does not happen. I put a ton of hours into this game, and I go down sometimes, and I go up, and then I go down, and I'll have a great day, and then I'll have a terrible day, and it's just the weirdest of things. And it's all the compounded, people are starting to care less. The season got a month shorter, which, to be honest, I really don't know if I like. I haven't decided if I like the 2-month seasons or the 3-month seasons. I think I'm leaning more toward enjoying the 3-month seasons, but admittedly, people will always, I feel like the argument against the 3-month season is like, oh, it's a little long, people stop to care as much, but people already don't care. That's the biggest issue with the ladder right now, is that nobody cares. Everybody wants to win, but they want to win conditionally. They want to win as their favorite hero, or they want to win as a DPS hero, and they don't want to build team comps, and there's absolutely no reason to play as a team, and there's absolutely no reason to communicate, because nobody communicates, and there's just this whole ordeal with the competitive system, and it's partially why I made the video that, last went live, was just saying that, like, the rank system, the competitive system, is desperate for change. And it's not desperate for change because it's just innately bad, although we could go into an entire discussion about performance-based SR, because that is terrible, in my opinion. But it just needs a change because the game is evolving. People are playing the game differently. People are understanding the game in different ways. And not much has changed since the beginning, when it was all still kind of shock and awe and everybody was in glamour about things and still figuring it out. Now it's kind of stagnated too much, but it's stagnated in like a poor position, in my opinion.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with the season just feels random. Yeah. Like, I will play the same performance level and lose 9 and then win 12 in a row.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is happening? And especially the performance-based SR for me, I'm a flex player. I don't really care. I'll just fit the team comp, whatever floats your boat. I like to play support, but I'll play anything. And I get punished for that.
Yeah.
So I'm helping out the team, and I'm like, why would I help you guys? The fact that it's better this season to leave voice chat, mute it, just play whatever you want, really shows the state of competitive Overwatch right now.
I think at its core, the system is just not intuitive to what the game is. And I think the best word that I've been using, I say it all the time in these videos, is that the game and the developers need to take the game and define what it is to be this, to be a player of this game. What is acceptable? What do they want you to be doing in this game? Do you want us to flex, or do you not want us to flex? Do you want us to be able to one trick because we paid the same amount of money as other people, or is that wrong? Is that poor teamwork? Is it okay that we're gaming the system by doing that? Like, we need answers to these very serious questions, and they're dead silent on it, because I'm not sure if they're, one, I'm not sure if they've decided yet, and that's fine. Like I said, they need to define the game, and the game has been evolving since it launched, and I just don't know. Like, we're waiting to know what they're going to do, because when you make a decision about something like that, when you do define the game, you have to also implement systems in game that reinforce it positively and negatively. If you come out and say, you know what, people that are throwing will be banned, you have to have a report system that actually takes care of those people to some degree. But if you come out and say, you know what, one tricking is not a good thing and we don't want you to do it anymore, but you don't actually change anything, they're going to still do it. It's like the developer update where Jeff came on and was talking about toxicity. Well, okay, that video was useless. I love Jeff, but that was a useless video. It didn't change anything. The whole season, they were like, you know what, we have competitive changes coming up for season 6, and we're excited, and more accounts are going to be banned, and y'all need to be nicer to each other, but nothing changed. The entire season was the same.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring it back like to the actual drop of Overwatch. So if you guys remember, like when this game came out, right, it had a like plane. You know what I mean? So there was no any changes or any spikes in the actual thing because there was no competitive. It was just quick play, and everybody that played the quick play wanted to be the ones to win. And as soon as competitive came out, everyone went hard. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I think we've lost that whole like motivation to get pumped to get to the top 500 or be the best, like be every game because of these constant changes. There is no resting state. It's just constant change after change. Then people don't really care. You know what I'm saying? So like they don't feel the comfortable weight of the resting state.
I do,
If you're,
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah, I know, and we've talked about this a little bit before, and I think I think the problem is that it's not a singular issue. I think it's very multifaceted in that it's the system that is failing everybody, and it's the lack of objective truth about what is, like I said, what is and isn't acceptable, and it's the the constant changing state of the game. Like, what is it going to be? Dive? Are we going to play triple tank? Are we going to have an OP bastion? Like, what are we doing with mercy? It's all of that kind of just stacks on top of each other that makes this scenario where finally one day you sit down to play Overwatch and you go, you know what, forget this, and you just start doing whatever you want. And then when everybody does that, well, then that's what this is, the system that you get. This is what has been bred.
Well, and I know you hate this, Crashy. You made a video about how like Overwatch is dying, but I think it's at that point in its life where it either makes a change that makes it survive or it starts to die. Because honestly, the community's fed up. It's boring. The game is not fun anymore to a lot of people, and I feel like unless they make a change, it's going to start to die.
I don't want to argue against your position because I think you're on a right track with that, but I will argue against the specific terminology that you use because I don't think that the game is dying. I think that the competitive ladder is dying. And I think that when the competitive ladder was introduced, I think that killed quick play. So quick play was murdered by the competitive ladder, which admittedly, I don't care. I don't care. It doesn't bother me at all. I wished quick play was better, and we can, go talk about that at a different date. But I don't actually care because I want to play competitive. But because competitive is now dying, because there's no changes and no rules and no structure and nothing to make it feel enforced, it's pulling the game down. But I can't say that the game is dying just based on the history that I've had with games where I've been in communities where like it literally died and it got weird and like the devs went total quiet and they, everybody was talking about how much money the devs were making, and then the dev studio had like this article that came out, and well, it wasn't from the studio, it was an article that came out talking about how the dev studio had to do like a 25% of their staff layoff. And so that's like when stuff is actually dying, like people are losing their jobs, the studio is losing money and they don't know what to do. They released their game on Steam for free, and like, I mean, it just like stuff started getting really weird. The business model started changing. They were trying to bring in new players, doing promotions and marketing and stuff like that. But I do agree with you. Like I'm saying, I do agree that something is bad. We're in a bad state, and we're at a place where they need to start making some decisions. That said, I don't know if I think BlizzCon is going to be when those things start coming out, but we did get that big blue post from Jeff like yesterday or the day before saying that there was like 3 main things they wanted to talk about, and it was like, what were they? Gosh, I already forget. It was like toxicity, the competitive system, and one other thing. And he basically told us like all in one swoop that like, hey, we hear y'all, we're working on stuff.
It feels like the toxicity a lot of times. This is a controversial opinion. I don't do it. There's some times when people are toxic, I'm like, well, it's well deserved. They deserve to be toxic right now. Like that's a crazy position to think about. But the game is just in such a weird place. Like if you're insta-locking 4 DPS and none of you can kill anything and the tank starts to get pissed off, sometimes as a support player, I'm like, yeah, they deserve to get yelled at right now.
Yeah,
but that's how bad the state is right now.
It's
just,
oh man, I don't disagree with you either. It's terrible.
That's why when I commented on the latest video, a system should be worked out is, well, in my opinion anyways, it should be worked out as like the Halo true skill system, because like even if you win, right, and you've done more than everybody else, you should be able to get higher up in the rankings, right? But even if that person who's like, say, like you said, 4 DPS, and they got like what 2 kills out of, I don't know, let's say 30, they still won, but they get a little bit of that XP going up. And like same with like loss. Like if you lose, right, and you did well, you shouldn't lose a lot. But if you lose and you didn't participate, you lose a lot.
But how do you judge what is doing well? You know, like how do
Because
you judge
they
that?
don't use the medals. The medals just sit there, right? And they're
Mm-mm.
just
Well, that's
that's it.
but that's the thing. If you're stacking your stats, if you sit on DPS the whole game, or if you one trick and you slam a bunch of damage in as a single hero, you actually do get benefit for that. That's what the performance SR is doing. That's why it's not working, because you're getting alterations to how much you lose or how much you gain based on the fact that you didn't help the team at all. I mean, you could have helped the team in a good way by doing well, but the one tricks are being rewarded, and the people that are flexing are the people that are flexing. So say I play a game and I started on DPS, and then my teammate was like, hey, do you mind if I DPS? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So I go tank, and then we get into like the double overtime scenario, and all of a sudden I want to try to play Symmetra because I want to try to full hold them. If I do that and we lose, I'm going to lose like double the SR that I would lose normally, because my stats were all over the place. I had a little bit of healing, I had a little bit of blocking, I had a little bit of damage, but none of it was good because I spread myself thin the whole game. The SR system is going to tear me to shreds.
Yep. But I mean, literally, in this season, I think I have 7 hours into like 18 heroes. I've just been flexing. Whatever the team needs is what I play. If they ask for it, I'll play it. And I'm punished for that by trying to help the team.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's ridiculous. You know, it's just like, and I know what I'm doing, but sometimes the fact that it's better for me to just mute everyone, like I said, and play whatever I want is not good for the competitive state of the game, because I'm punished for helping.
The system needs to encourage people to want to win, and when the system is being gamed by factors other than just winning, it creates a scenario where people make that their secondary priority. Everybody wants to win. The one tricks want to win. The people that you perceive as throwers who aren't actually throwing, they're just doing what they want to do, they have all given themselves a condition prior to winning. They say the Hanzo main, the Hanzo one trick says he doesn't go into a game picking Hanzo saying, you know what, I'm going to throw this game. 99% of the time, that's not actually what happens. What he does is he goes into the game and says, you know what, Hanzo's my favorite character. I'm giving myself the condition that I really want to win. I want to win as bad as everybody else in this lobby, all 11 other people, but I want to win as Hanzo. And I don't blame him for that, but he should not get any benefits for doing something like that, and borderline that shouldn't even be acceptable. But that's a totally different argument. The problem
that's
is
basically what I was saying though, because even if you do win with that Hanzo, right, the Hanzo doesn't get as much as XP as everybody else who's participating in the actual things, even though he's doing his best, right, he's still not helping the team out.
Well, I mean, if he had like all gold medals and had an amazing Hanzo game, he's probably going to get more SR than everybody else. I mean, just based on the system, depending on how
not just
he
him
did.
alone though, because if you go off the stats of, say, it's a healer and the healer's doing the best and the tank's blocking and the same, but I'm just saying, like, if you have like what Scrubby was saying, 4 DPS and there's literally one person getting all the kills, then those other 3 people should be punished because they're not doing their job.
I just think the problem is that in a game that's so diverse and crazy and loud and wacky as Overwatch, it's so hard for data to be examined, like your damage output and, you know, like things like that, like healing, damage blocked, and stuff like that. It's hard for that data to be pulled by any computer system or any program and objectively be viewed as valuable. You know, like, how can you tell me that I was having, or like, okay, a good example is I play Genji a lot. I main him. I basically one trick him 90% of the time. And I will have games where I'm going crazy. I'm doing really well, but my damage numbers and my eliminations aren't super high, but I've been keeping myself alive a lot more. I'm trying to group up. And then I'll have some random tank player yelling at me because he pulled silver damage off of me or something, or he's got a silver damage medal. And it's like, all of that stuff is just so anecdotal, and it's such a small percentage of what the bigger picture is. Like for me, I think the most important thing is time management. It's more important than anything else. I don't care if you're doing a lot of damage, just as long as we get, like, as long as we group up and get a lot of chances to try to take the point. And that's all with time management. If you stagger every single time you die, you're wasting intervals of like 8 to 10 seconds every single time you die. And so there is no stat for how much you stagger. There's no way for the competitive system to see whether or not you're effectively managing your time. So the system can't tell. It can't. It tries, but it's not accurately pulling how much of an impact you had on the game. And it's because of the type of game we're playing. It's because of the game that they've built. I just think that because of that fact, at least in my eyes, they should have a system that only matters if you win or lose. Because then you think that Torbjorn cares if he had an amazingly strong Torbjorn game? Because it doesn't matter. It's not going to help him anymore. The only thing that would help him is winning. So I don't think it would end one tricking, but I think it would like maybe promote flexing. At least it wouldn't hurt flexes, that's for sure. It wouldn't hurt flexes, undeniably.
Well, I think the system's broken right now too because it's based upon your performance compared to the rest of your rank as a hero.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, Mercy's at a 100% pick rate. You know how much harder it is to rank up as Mercy because that means that every other healer is who you're up against.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's ridiculous. We needed, first of all, new support. That's a totally different topic. But second of all, if they're going to judge it on personal performance, they need a different way to measure it. Rather than comparatively to everyone else in your rank.
I just don't know how they even can. How do you keep the performance-based SR system and make it work when performance is so subjective? Like, it's like my impact on a game is not correlated to those stupid numbers and those medals. It just hardly ever is. I mean, I have a lot of games like, man, I'll flex on a tank every now and then, and I'll slam damage onto the board, and that doesn't mean that my teammates are bad on the DPS role. It just, you know, like if you're an amazing Widow, do you think you're always going to have gold damage? Not necessarily.
No,
she doesn't, but you'll get a
picks,
ton of picks, and you're going to still have high value if you're good at Widow. It's just the numbers are harmful in and of themselves. Like, and I think medals need to be gone. There needs to be an end game scoreboard, and nobody needs to see anything about the numbers during the game, in my opinion. It doesn't matter. And the medals don't even put me against my enemies. Like, okay, I used to play a lot of Heroes of the Storm, and in the middle of the game, you can pull up a menu and see the numbers for the entire match. Like, you can see how much damage you're blocking, how much damage you're doing, and so, like, if I'm playing Kael'thas and the enemy team also has Kael'thas, I can see, wow, dude, that guy has 60,000 damage. I have 130,000 damage. Like, I'm killing at this game. But this system, this scoreboard that you can barely call it that because all it is a scorecard for yourself, all it does is put you against your own teammates. So sure, I have golds. What does that make me do? It creates animosity between the team. That's the worst thing they could have implemented ever. It makes no sense.
I see your point there.
Like, why do you give me a gold medal just so I can turn on my allies and say, wow, you guys are doing trash, you know? Like, I need y'all to step it up and do more damage. Like, that's not fun. Like, why do we even have the medals? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, does it make anyone feel good? I mean, I guess it does when that's their go-to excuse.
With the Heroes of Storm, right? You can see, like, everybody's...
Yeah, it's a full scoreboard.
So with that, right, wouldn't that cause a little bit more problems? Because they're gonna say your whatever Zarya is doing better and got like, now everyone's gonna start
like
slamming.
So you think it's to say that like your teammates will be toxic to you because they'll see that you're doing less than the enemy as the same hero? I think it could be. I
like the way like the thinking it. Like I like that. That's pretty good.
Well,
right?
I think the better solution, because Overwatch is so fast and so constant, I think the better solution would be to get rid of the numbers mid-game and give you a scoreboard post-game, because your emotions aren't going to be running high when the game has already concluded. Like, when you're done and it's over, you might be mad that you lost, but you're already starting to come down from it. You know what I mean? Like, you're not as stressed out. You're not as anxious. And then you could look at the scoreboard and say, like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, that Hanzo really didn't contribute very much. Is it going to stop the toxicity from someone, like, right at the very end of the game being like, hey, Hanzo, you suck? No, not necessarily, or maybe he'll add him and talk crap to him, but my point is that there's not really a purpose in the numbers mid game. It gives you such a very small fraction of the picture that it's kind of entirely useless.
This is something a little, it's kind of connected, but I want to hear NeBo's opinion on it. At least from my experience, I found that PC players are the ones that bring up the medals and are more toxic consistently than most people that I beat on console. I don't know what that is or why that is, but I feel like your idea, Crashy, about the scorecard at the end is good. But why do you think it is that players on different consoles have different levels of toxicity?
I don't know, maybe just culture. Like the same reason why like different regions will sometimes like play different meta, even though the heroes are all the same across, internationally.
I think like PC sets the standard. You know what I mean? Like, so you see these little kids, they watch all streamers and stuff like that, and the streamers and higher up guys are gonna be like, "Oh, my medal's this, my medal's that," and then it trickles down to like us console peasants, right? Now the kids are like taking this culture of screaming at their teammates and medals and whatever, and it is what it is. But at the same time, if you go back to like early Call of Duty, early Halo, there was always people like being toxic, and you know, it is what it is, man.
Yeah, I think it's important at least to note that there is no solution to everything. And I've said this a lot, especially whenever I was talking about like the role queue system that I wanted to, or that I came up with and was trying to push really heavily. The point is that you're never going to fix all the issues. There is no utopian. And the reason being is that the player who is a hardcore one trick player doesn't assume, they don't feel that what they're doing is wrong. But for me specifically, and this is again just an opinion, you don't have to agree with me and that's fine. I think one tricking is wrong. I think it should be bannable. I think it's so stupid of a tactic or a play style that I don't think it has any place in this game because it goes against what the game is even built on. And it's weird to say this, but like you know how many less issues we would have if Overwatch was developed like Paladins, where you just draft a team and then that's who you play the whole game. I don't think that's good for the game. I don't think that's good for the game. I don't ever want them to do that. I don't think that's right for the game. But we would get rid of a lot of random issues. A lot. Like you just would. You would get rid of so many random issues.
I do have a cool idea. You just said hero drafts.
Yeah,
this is something I've been wanting
like
to get your guys' opinion on for a long time, but I just haven't had the time to. What would you think if they added like a map banning system like CS:GO has, or like a hero banning system, whatever it may be? I think that would add a lot to the competitive game.
I think that
make it way better.
I think that a map banning system would work fine. I think it depends on how they're doing the pro scene, because like in other games you do like snake drafts for maps, so it's like, hey, you got heads on the coin toss, what map do you want to ban? So we're like, okay, we're gonna ban Gibraltar, and then the other team snakes, and you go back and forth until you land on a map or land on a pool of maps, and then the last team that didn't pick, or the last team that's left to pick, gets to pick between like the 3 or 4 maps that are left. So snake drafting is not, that's not unknown, not even to Overwatch. They did that in the early days of competitive Overwatch, and that's fine. I think the problem with hero banning is that the game is so reliant on like certain counters that hero banning will only ever work if it's in a very short number, like maybe 1 per team, which means two global bans for the entire game. So like one team bans Genji, the other team bans Winston. But the problem with hero bans is that the roster needs to be like double the size. You can't do hero bans in a game that has 25, 26 heroes. I mean, if Envious decides to ban, I'm just using random names, if Envious decides to ban Mercy and then Optic decides to ban Lucio, well then hell, there's only 2 healers to use. So I mean, that would just be weird. Like the roster would just have to be much bigger to do hero bans, I think.
I'd want to see that game. Zenyatta only. That'd be the ultimate comp.
Yeah, I mean, you could, yeah, Zenyatta,
Go back to
Ana.
thought that you were talking about. Like, how does that work out?
What was that?
Team. I want to go back to the whole Paladins thought. Like, how does that work?
Okay, so have you played in MOBAs before? Because that's where I come from mostly prior to Overwatch. So
not that crazy.
Okay, so MOBAs, you have a massive pool of heroes, and you only get to pick one. And so Paladins, while it is a team shooter, it falls much more under that MOBA aspect kind of, because of the fact that at the beginning of the game they pick their heroes and that's who they get. That is your team comp. That is the comp that you face versus their comp. And
Wouldn't
so
that promote more one tricking if, say, like I want to be a McCree and then I get pulled into a selection of other.
I mean, it doesn't. I don't think you can promote one tricking more than what Overwatch already does. I think the reality is, unless the developers implement a system and come out and say one tricking is bannable, I don't think you can ever get rid of one tricking. So I think promoting one tricking is the system we have now, where like it literally makes the most sense now to be a one trick than any other scenario I could think of.
Well, I think the problem is too, we never complain about the good one tricks. Like if there's a Pharah who's consistently carrying, no one cares that they're a one trick.
And so I've kind of weighed in on that before too, because I hate to, like, okay, I'm not gonna really complain about like a Rhine one trick or a Soldier one trick, like something that's super consistent and we're all fine to have it on our team. But at the same time, I'm an all or none type of mentality with this. So yeah, if they're literally one tricking those heroes and they're like, that's just dumb. It's dumb. Like I don't usually complain about them, but at the same time, if they're, I don't know, it's just weird. Like a Pharah can get hard countered, and a Genji can get hard countered, and a Winston can get hard countered, and yet all three of those picks, like all those types of heroes, are very consistent and are almost always applicable to a lot of team comps. But if you're hard countered, or if you just know that you're not getting value out of your pick, idealistically, and based on how I think the game was meant to be played, you should swap. But that also comes with the lack of information, because Blizzard never told us that you're supposed to swap. They just told us that we could. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wrong here. Maybe one tricking is fine. I just know it's dumb in a way,
Well,
like, especially with the dumb heroes. But
it feels like a.
Go ahead, Scrubby. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think another thing is too, I'm basically, this season at least, I was a one trick on Mercy. I played Mercy basically every game unless I had to flex do something else, which I ended up having to do a lot, but no one complained. No one cared if I was the Mercy one trick. They only cared if I was playing McCree. So I think the problem with one tricking is, like you said, it's either all or nothing, and not a lot of people want to say, yeah, if you only play Mercy, you're wrong too.
Yeah, no, I am an all or nothing person. Like, I think if anybody is one tricking any hero, that is just dumb. Like, and it's not even like, there's a lot of valuable one tricks, even on niche heroes. There are valuable players. Like, what was his name? Nut. He's like a top 10 Symmetra main one trick. And so you can't tell me that the guy hasn't found ways to win and doesn't bring value to his teams. It's just not fun. It's not fun to play with someone who doesn't want to be on a team and work together. Like, it is, if I'm a Zenyatta or a Mercy and they have a Pharah that is raining down hell on me, I know that I would love some help with that that Pharah. So it would be nice if someone swapped to hit scan, or it was able to swap to something that that could deal with her. But, that's more of a teamwork thing. Like, it would be nice if someone felt like helping me out. But if you have a one trick, well, then you can guarantee that they're not going to be able to, because they're playing a hero like Hanzo who can't reliably, deal with her or something like that. And it's not to say that Hanzo won't get value by killing somebody else. It's just to say that it's not as fun when you don't feel like the people that are on your side of the field are even in the same corner as you.
All right. So with that, like I was gonna say, like the saying, right? Jack of all trades, master of none, and like, you could constantly, like, I feel your point though, honestly. Like, I really do. I feel like if someone wants to one trick, right, and they want to be like 100% efficient with that character, like, go ahead. But for the reason, like you said, with Symmetra, right, if you need healing, like, why the hell are you Symmetra? You know what I mean? It doesn't even.
And like I said, that's the thing. It doesn't, the mentality of a true one trick, it's nonsensical. It's not a logical standpoint. They have just given themselves, and they don't even think of it this way. This is why I literally think there's a psychological thing to it. They don't even think of it as a disadvantage, but they have actually given themselves a disadvantage, even if they're a strong hero. Like, even if you're a Soldier 76, one trick, like, you will find yourself in disadvantages at some points, where Soldier 76 is being hard countered by double shields or something. You know what I mean? Like, where it would be better to run something else. Like, because, okay, so for example, if my team is X DPS Junkrat, whatever, who doesn't matter, Junkrat, and then I'm a Soldier 76 one trick, and they're running Rhine Orisa, well, let's be honest, my Soldier 76 damage ain't going very far. They're going to keep spam shields up, and I'm going to have a hard time getting a lot of damage out. Will I still bring value by helping kill the shields? Absolutely. Or I could play Pharah and rain fire from above and displace the Reinhardt and, you know, bring more value. So what they're doing is, it's not logical.
Handicap.
Yeah, it is a handicap, but it's a handicap that they've accepted just because they've made the decision to one trick a hero. Also, from my perspective, I play a ton of Genji. I think whenever I actually did the math of it, it's like 65 or 70% of my playtime overall seasons is Genji. So I mean, I'm close to even considering myself a one trick on him. But at the same time, I can't just play him. I get bored. I have to play other heroes. I literally have to. I couldn't imagine having 100% of my game time on one hero. You're not even playing the game. You know what I mean? You're playing Symmetra. You're not playing Overwatch.
Like I said, one tricks as a whole, I don't think there's anything you can do to get rid of them. Like, we've all pretty much agreed they're going to exist, but mitigating them is the real struggle. So do any of us have an idea on how you would do that?
I don't know if I even have an idea that's worth bringing up, because it just comes from the devs. Like, it just comes from their position on it, and they've really never said anything about one tricking. I think when Siegel sat down, I don't even remember what event it was. He sat down with Scott Mercer and they did the like live stream Q&A, and he was like, "Hey, you know, like, get these one tricks out of my game." And Scott Mercer was like, "Yeah, we hear y'all." Like, that's all he said. Like, he never said like anything about it. They never say anything about it. But I think that time is coming soon. Like, I think pretty soon we're going to get a dev update or a blue post that explains what their total transparency thoughts are on one tricking and kind of ladder manipulation, because in a way that's kind of what I view it as. Like, you're one tricking because of the SR system, and or just because you're stubborn and you want to play one hero. And so in a way it's like ladder manipulation / poor teamwork to me. I don't know. The only thing I could say as a viable answer to your question is that we should get rid of performance-based SR, so that way maybe it's not to dissuade them from one tricking, but to promote them to flexing, because if you get rid of performance-based SR, the only thing that matters is winning. And if you know that you're at a handicap because you main Symmetra, well, then maybe you'll swap. And some won't. I mean, that's just, like I said, there's a psychological thing that has let them made that decision. They chose to play with this condition, and so some of them will never go against, you know, what they chose, but others might. Maybe, I don't know.
Can we switch off the topic of one trick and maybe go into the 26th hero?
Sure.
Throw in some speculations of what's going on with that. Like, considering Jeff, he did say that the 26th hero is like
super playable,
well far along, and super playable, and you know, like, maybe we're gonna get a support hero, maybe defensive. Who knows? I want to hear your thoughts on it. That'd be sick.
Yeah, so we'll go on ahead. We've gone pretty long, and I'm super happy about that, because I know we all said 15 to 30 minutes, so I'm pretty excited that we were able to just sit here and have the discussion. So we'll talk about the hero a little bit, we'll wrap it up, we'll do our little plugs and shout outs, and then we'll have the first episode of the podcast out. So from me, I have to say, not just to jump into speculation, if it's not a support hero, I will be verbally upset. Like, I will be vocally upset, because we're in a position where the game just desperately needs to breathe some life into the support role. And I think nothing is more suitable at a time like this, when Mercy's in such a weird spot, than bringing in another quote main healer, like someone that does a lot of healing and is super unique and super cool. So I hope that's what we get. I really don't have any kind of speculation. I could come up with concepts. I have an artist drawing my hero concept that I'm going to make a video for in the future. So I've come up with a support concept myself. I think, is that a spoiler? Did I just leak my own info? I guess I did. But yeah, I think it's going to be cool.
If it's not a support hero, I think they have two options really. I don't think we necessarily need a support hero, but if it's not going to be a support hero, they need to buff Ana again, because there really is one healer right now that can do anything, and it's Mercy. So they need to add a main healer or fix one of the ones right now that's not to be a main healer. And I think if it's not a support hero, which it totally should be, it has to be a defensive hero. If it's a DPS hero, I'm quitting.
Well, you mean like an offense hero? Because defense and offense are both DPS, but
you know what I mean. If it's another offense hero, I don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah, I've even said like honestly, I think the next 4 heroes should be 2 supports, 1 tank, and 1 defense. And the only reason I say 1 defense is because that is technically a class. Although I don't even acknowledge offense and defense, I just acknowledge damage. But that's coming from a place of understanding the game's literal roles and not the classifications, because the classifications are poor, and even the devs have said they're poor, but that doesn't matter. I think the game needs to show some love to the supporting class, you know, like the actual healers of the game. Like bring Mercy down to where she doesn't feel like a must-have, make Ana feel good in a way if that's a buff or a small change or something, and then introduce us a new main healer, something that, you know, will pair up good with, you know, Ana's and Lucio, and maybe, you know, like maybe running two double strong main healers, or I don't know, something cool. I want something cool.
And then concepts, my personal favorite idea would be buff Ana so that way she can be a main healer, and add an anti-healer, because I think that's such a cool class that we've never really seen before, and I think it'd be super fun to play. Like basically its role would be Ana's biotic grenade, just to prevent the other team from healing. While you move on.
Is that healing though? I mean, like, how do you heal your teammates with that?
No, I'm saying it would be a support hero, because it would be supporting your team getting kills.
So not a healer.
Yeah. They would rebuff Ana to be a main healer, and then you would have another option for the support class.
Well, I guess we won't go too deep into this, but I would say arguably the only 2 main healers in the game right now are Ana and Mercy, and the only reason Ana is bad is because Mercy's so strong. And I don't think that a hero like you're saying shouldn't exist, but I still don't know how I feel about the classifications with Symmetra even being considered a support. It's just so weird because the game, I don't know, the roster is 25, soon to be 26 heroes, and we only have 4 healers, literal people that can create healing. And so it's just weird. I don't know. This is another one of those things that I say like Blizzard needs to define about Overwatch. Like what are your roles? Like what are the actual classes meant to be?
And then just to ask if it's cool with you guys, after this hero thing, I have one idea that I think will make Crashy very happy.
Sure.
But let's let NeBo go first.
Yeah, all right. So for me, like you guys said, like support. Hopefully, we do get a support hero. If not, if we get a defensive hero, I'm cool with that. I don't really care. But I want to see a defensive hero that has damage over time. Like we don't really have any heroes that have damage over time. If you want to talk about maybe May's ultimate, or like Ana, I don't know, she hits and like it takes 3 times and that's about it. But like I would like to see an actual like hero that does damage over time in bigger areas. So like I don't know, maybe we can get like an opposite of May, so like a fire type, or someone that puts out toxicity and like takes out not literal toxicity,
yeah.
But like
You're a noob.
No, how great would that voice line be though? Actually, like, wow, I actually can see an entire Junker character that like throws toxic barrels, and he's like area of denial, and he just does these like AoE bombs and grenades, and like he has like Molotov cocktails, and like, and he actually spews out like toxic garbage, and he's like, forget you, Diva, you suck, I'm gonna win. Like, I don't know, like how great would that be?
That'd be sick.
That's actually a really cool idea. I think dot heroes are cool. I know like warlocks in World of Warcraft are super cool, where you can put a bunch of dots on someone and they just like at range are just like bleeding out, like that's super cool. So Scrubby, what do you got for us, man?
All right, hear me out. This is a nerf to Mercy, but I think it would buff another hero that's kind of weak right now.
Okay.
You know how Reaper used to have the souls, right?
I do.
What if when he consumed the souls, you couldn't res that person anymore?
Yeah, but that's a direct buff to one hero.
But however, what if it, like, I'm just saying, that's an idea. What if there was a way to prevent a hero from becoming res? Whether that be like like a down system almost.
It would have to be
Like-
see, the thing about it is it would have to be universal, because if you have if you have a single hero that is a direct counter to the insane value of Mercy's res, well then Mercy becomes a must-have because she has the value, and then the other hero becomes a must-have because he can shut down the value. So we'll either see a weird scenario where they're both picked all the time, or where neither are picked all the time because they're so good at countering each other. So it's just kind of weird.
Like a down system where, like, once a person's dead, if you go up to them and do more damage, then they can't be res.
I think that could be. I think that's a big overhaul, but that's not a terrible idea. You know, like
I feel like the res, as much as it can be OP, it is a good ability.
You wanna know? I actually saw a good idea in a Facebook group, which is super rare because I usually hate almost 90% of the comments that I see in Overwatch Facebook groups. But there was this this one girl, and she posted a comment, like I think it was at one of my ideas, and her idea was like, hey, what if she doesn't get the reset or like the second charge of res, and what if she can only res while ulting? And I was like, you know, that's not terrible. I think the problem with that is that she might feel, but here's the thing, I don't think she would feel underwhelming because her ult is super strong. Like as its own without res, it's super good. And having one res might be acceptable. The problem is you can't have it all the time. Like it has to be conditionally to ult, I think, because the thing that's making Mercy a must-have is the fact that she always has a res. Like, and I don't mean literally always. I just mean like the very start of the game, no ult charge has a res. That's just too much value. It's never gonna work that way. I'm gonna call it. This is my prediction. They're either gonna get rid of res entirely, or they're gonna make res have a condition that makes it earned. Like you're gonna it's like gonna be a mini ult where you have to heal 2,000 damage to get the res, or it's gonna be a 60-second cooldown, or it's gonna be only usable during ult, or you know what I mean. Like it's gonna be very conditional how they decide to nerf it.
I like that. The hero, like, you gotta power up Mercy's res healing. That's pretty cool, man. Like, that's just like the ultimate meter right there.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be a mini res, yeah. Or it could even be part of her passive where, like, oh, if Mercy, I don't know, does, 4,000 healing, she gets one charge of res, because I don't know what the number would be. I don't know enough about Mercy to know how much healing or how long that would take.
I was like 4K some games if your team is good.
Well, what would you say is an average game? Like, let's say up to 4 points defending. Well, no, I guess that's not even good either.
It would have to be dependent on game mode.
Yeah.
If it's on payload, I can get 30k healing in a game. But if it's like, the 2 CP maps.
Well, let me ask you this much. Let's make it a little bit simpler. How many times on any game mode, even though that might muddle the question a little bit, how many times on any game mode do you think Mercy should be allowed to res? Like overall, the whole game, even if it was like the longest game you ever had that ended in a draw, how many times should she be allowed to res from start to finish? 4.
I think 4.
I think like 2 to 3. And that means that she like barely ever has it. And that's cool with me. Like, because I think when Mercy gets her res, however she gets it, it should be like a huge play. Like, oh my God, she had the res in this fight. And that's the reason they won this fight, instead of that's the reason why they won every fight.
A bank where you had 4 and that was it. And however you used them, that was it.
Well, that doesn't make sense though, because then you like swap sides and stuff. Although I don't think that's a terrible idea. I mean, you could man. Her res is so problematic. It's so weird.
A conversation in itself, though. Like we kind of like went far.
Oh yeah, I mean, and that's cool. I'm down with that.
But at the same time, if you have 4, if you have 4 reses, right? So say it's a 2 CP map, right? You have 4 reses for that whole time. How are you gonna know if your team's like say your team's constantly dying, like?
Well, that's where the skill comes in.
Well, okay, well, what about this? What if she, per round, and so that's like when you're attacking, when you're defending, when you start a new point on capture point, what if she had 2 reses for the whole round? And so when your attack is over, you were able to res 2 people that whole round from the start of King's Row all the way to the very end, and then when you get on defense, you have 2 reses. Because you know what that would do?
Because I just start switching with the other healer. So when I use my 2 reses, okay, Lucio switch. And then he has his 2 reses.
Oh God, you're right. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm serious whenever I say that, like, or it would, no, I don't know. Maybe it would have to, the game would have to know to lock res globally for your team. I just think that's so crummy. Like, that's not even good development at this point. Like, now I'm just trying to band-aid the issue. Like, that's just, it's just, and this is why I would rather just give her a totally new ability. But I mean, I get it. I get the, you know, she's a res and it's cool. I struggle to find a way to see how they're going to make it work without it either being, okay, here's what I think is going to happen. They're going to nerf it again. I don't think they're going to get rid of it yet. They're going to nerf it again, and it's either going to still be too good or it's going to be like dog crap, and then nobody's going to want to play her. And that's a little bit of a harsh example, because I still think if she just had a different ability, she would still be amazing. I don't think she'd be a must pick, but I think she'd be good for niche comms. Like, the reason dive like healers with Zen Lucio were so good was because they were good in a scenario where Mercy wasn't a must pick, and so their aggressive nature and lack of healing didn't even matter, because the goal was to kill people so fast that you didn't need healing. Like, you ran those two tanks or those two healers because you didn't need a lot of healing. Now you can't do that, because if you dive in and get 2 kills, Mercy just says, like, lol. Lol. So I don't know. It's weird.
The res is such an iconic part of the game,
dude.
Mercy,
I know.
that I feel like if they took it out, it would just kind of be like, what?
I mean, I know.
Bastion's turret form. That's my only concern.
I see that complaint. I see people saying, like, oh, res is what makes Mercy res, and I get that from, like, the lore character perspective, but I just, like, game balance means more than anything ever. And it's weird because the company has to compromise. They have to make it to where the people don't just naturally hate Mercy because she's no longer Mercy. You know what I mean? Like, you can't take away Guardian Angel from her either. That would be ridiculous. Mercy has these big wings, and she doesn't even fly around anymore. So, you know what I mean? Like, I do get that. I'm just not really sure. I guess we're playing the waiting game on this one, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what they'll come up with, because I'll put it this way: we'll eventually hit a point where Mercy's not considered a must pick and super OP. That doesn't mean somebody else won't be, but eventually they're gonna get it right.
Let's just give Lucio Mercy's healing, and then no one will remember Mercy anymore.
Yeah. And it's actually funny because I remember people. I guess I'll try to wrap up on this, and then y'all can say whatever you want, because we're encroaching on the hour mark.
Oh yeah.
But
for sure.
I will say I know that people were complaining because they were like, well, prior to Mercy being insane and a must-have, Lucio was the same way. And it's actually funny that people brought that up, because I actually hated that Lucio was a must-have pick, and he was. And now all of a sudden, Lucio's like not even picked at all. But I mean, are definitely not as much. But I actually have problems with Lucio, even in his current form. It's hard to bring them up because he's not overpowered, at least in the current state of the game. But I do have problems with him, and I'm sure they're going to resurface again.
If you get rid of the boob, I'm quitting. But yeah. So to wrap up, check me out on YouTube if you want. I make content that's decent. And if you don't subscribe to Blackwatch Intel, I will cry myself to sleep.
Same. NeBo, where can we find you, bro?
You can find me on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter. I'll put all links in the description, I guess. Look up YouTube/NeBo, NeBo, and you'll find me.
And guys, y'all know where to find me. I'll be mostly hanging out here. Follow us on Twitter. I post updates on there when I'm bored at work. I post more personal and my specific opinions on my Twitter, a little bit of health stuff, and I don't know. This was a very fun, exciting first episode of the podcast. I'm excited that we were able to naturally go 59 minutes, and we could definitely go longer, but we're gonna go ahead and cut it here. So thanks for hanging out, NeBo, Scrubby. I appreciate y'all coming on. And we'll see y'all for the next video.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel the fire inside of me? Do you see the sparks that I'm setting free? Does the